anti-discrimination laws. This raises serious concerns about the future of Pell Grants, special education funding, Title I support for low-income schools. The federal government plays a deep and important role for schools all over the country, especially in terms of funding. The Department of Education is responsible for 11% of K-12 funding nationwide. This fiscal year, we allocated almost $15 billion to elementary and secondary education. This includes money for disenfranchised students, school improvement programs, and making up most of this part of the school's budget. We also allocated $12 billion to special education, ensuring that each student has an opportunity to succeed. Minnesota receives over $2,000 per student from the federal government. Minneapolis Public Schools are already anticipating an $84 million deficit this year, with the deficit exceeding $100 million in subsequent years. Erasing these necessary federal funds will make the shortfall even more dire. The Department of Education was created by Congress, and we have not given Trump the authority to destroy it. Remember to dial *3 to ask a question live once I finish the updates. Similar to the Department of Education, the Department of Veteran Affairs is planning to cut 83,000 jobs, which is about 17% of its workforce. Since nearly 30% of the federal workforce are veterans, this disproportionately affects those who served our country. This will cause severe damage to the VA healthcare infrastructure. 90% of the VA's workforce is dedicated to healthcare, and these cuts will worsen already long wait times and staffing shortages, making it harder for veterans to access care. It also will impact the Veterans Crisis Line, which receives about 60,000 calls per month. Veterans face a disproportionate risk of suicide. This will make their disparity even more stark. It is unconscionable to turn our backs on those who have served our country. Finally, he plans to cut from the vital veteran safety net programs. Over 400,000 veterans are uninsured, and nearly 10% of all veterans rely on Medicaid for health care, with 40% of these veterans depending on Medicaid entirely. These budget cuts could decimate Medicaid, potentially leaving hundreds of thousands of veterans without coverage. At the same time, he plans to cut food assistance, with 1.2 million veterans relying on this benefit. Veterans are already overrepresented in our homeless population. Slashing these programs would worsen food security, homelessness, and access to care for those who served. I think most people in this room agree that healthcare is a human right, that food is a human right, and the cuts that Republicans are proposing to Medicaid and SNAP will kill people, plain and simple. But when Republicans have abandoned veterans, it's hard to imagine who they are willing to protect. All of this is happening for one simple reason. They want to give a giant tax break to billionaires and corporations because that is who put them in power. Last week, a federal judge ruled that Trump had illegally fired thousands of workers, and he ordered the government to immediately rehire them. We will see whether Trump again chooses to ignore the judiciary.